I wish more people knew that. It's not to say I do like the working up a patient truly from scratch. You're talking about the critically ill. We've got no information, pulled out of some hoarder situation, and here we are. We're starting from scratch. They're altered. They're not responsive, etc. I love that part. Yep. That part's great. But then everybody else who walks in who's got however many years of XYZ complaint, that's a tough part.
Right. When that back pain start? Well, it started a couple of years ago.
But their life story.
What changed now that made you come in now?
I had the Saturday free. It's like, okay, well, that's fine. Yeah. We'll see you for it, but probably won't be able to tell you the answer for it, right?
I always try to set the right expectation at the front end of the visit for that very reason, because we're not equipped to make non-emergent diagnoses. And unfortunately, most of the patients that come in are not dying. We're not equipped to make this diagnosis. Unfortunately, we don't have the tests. We don't have, an MRI that's available to everybody that comes in the door. And so, you need to see your primary care. And if you're dizzy, hey, we're going to make sure it's not a stroke, but then you're probably going to go home and without a clear answer, unfortunately.
Well, and that's what a lot of people use the ER as a primary care facility. And I'm like, dude, we don't refill prescriptions, really. We don't do any of that. What is your emergency? One of my favorite docs that I love is when he comes in and he puts his clipboard down. What is your emergency? And they're like, oh, well, started 15 years ago. And he's like, no, bro. What is the emergency? And I just love their face just goes like this. And I'm like,
so how'd that go again?
It was really interesting in nursing school. In school, you get to do a lot of different projects and, considerations for a lot of stuff. And it really gets your mind thinking. And one thing that I started to research in was the amount of people that know CPR around America, and the idea of mandating CPR being taught in high school as a requirement before you graduate, which is a lot of states do now. Colorado's not one of those that do that. They suggest it. It's highly suggested, but it's not mandated. But then it started making me think about other things and what would go along with that, right? So what would you add to a class because CPR could be taught in less than a day. So what could you add to that to make it a semester long in high school for a class? And part of that would have been a health reamping what health class looks like, more so than just learning about your body, but the healthcare system itself, when to use primary care, when to use ER, and start at a younger age versus having to try to teach that to generations of people who have been doing it a certain way for so long.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting to consider those concepts and how you can, I think it all comes down to the patient populations that we deal with, that have a mindset of what the ER is versus what it really is. So.
Yeah.
Everything you hear today from myself and my guests is opinion only and doesn't represent any organizations or companies that any of us are affiliated with. The stories you hear have been modified to protect patient privacy, and any resemblance to real individuals is coincidental. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice nor used to diagnose any medical or healthcare conditions. And they just have poor access to primary care.
Yeah.
I get it. It's hard if you don't have the means to pay cash or whatever for a primary care visit, and you've got to use these other services that we have, they're months and months out. And so I understand why people do it. And my perspective is kind of well, this is the system we find ourselves in. So how can I most efficiently run the department, based on this limit that we have? And patients come in for primary care workups and I order them and they're just going to get moved through the department a lot faster. I'm going to have a lot less time to talk to you about your non-emergent complaint than the person that we find with a head bleed, 2 beds down, so your visit's going to be a lot briefer. It's going to be, we're not going to give you a clear answer because you're not dying. If we have a clear answer, it means there's something really bad going on. So I don't know. That's kind of the perspective I take is I'm not going to be in your room for a half hour like your primary care doctor would spend with you. I'm happy to order a test or something to make sure you're not dying, but then we got to move you out because somebody that checks in next might be dying. So,
and that's what stinks is sometimes I do feel like some people slip through the crevices because, in the ER, we're such a fast pace and we have to go because there are more and more people that just keep piling in, or there's a lot of wait times. And, we had one person that just came in for a headache not too long ago, young person. They were like, okay, well, your test results aren't back. You can go ahead and go. Well, when they came back, they had a huge mass.
Oh, dang.
But they were it's just a headache. But then those people who have those things, because we're such a fast-paced thing, sometimes they fall through the crevices. So we had to call them back. And Yeah, it can be scary sometimes working in the ER.
There's a lot of people that slip through the cracks, but like we have been saying, people use it as a primary care, and they expect it to be super fast paced, even just walking in, like going back to see the doctor. Sometimes that's an hour wait, depending on how many people we have in that waiting area. Like, we're trying to get you back, and we stop certain things that we do up front to make your visit faster so we can get you back to see the doctor faster. Not everybody needs to go back for those tests. And what the best way I've tried to put it so the person understands is, if you are not actively dying, the emergency department's not going to be a fast visit.
Yeah.